The subcommittee that we will each have 5 minutes to question the panel. I will now recognize myself for questions. I want to start with Chief Lombard. You said, having been on the ground during 9/11, you said something to the effect of you're, of course, keenly aware of the conditions on the ground that day. And we know one of the major challenges was interoperability. Could you just kind of talk a little bit more of what it was like on the ground that day? And then since 9/11, paint a picture for us of the improvements that we've made, but we still need to make. Thank you.
Sure, Chair. Thank you very much for the question. So I responded with so the FEMA contracts around the nation to form 28 urban search and rescue teams. The Seattle Fire Department is part of one of those teams. So we responded. We were actually in what was the second round, and it was definitely a life-altering experience. The sights, the sounds, the smells, like nothing I've ever seen since or had never seen before. Like you, I was coming off duty that morning and saw the news on the TV, and it was, again, life altering. When we responded to New York, one of the challenges is that even as the federal USAR teams, we all had disparate communications. Further, our communications didn't integrate to the public safety responders, the police, fire, EMTs, dispatch on scene as well. So we had to make extensive use of runners. We had to kind of come by fly-by-wire patching and communications, networks to try to do the best that we could at the time. Thankfully, like I had mentioned in my testimony, there were some relationships that were already established. So at least we had some kind of idea on who we should reach out to and who we should talk to. Talking with colleagues and counterparts at the Washington, D.C. aspect of 9/11, it was kind of the same thing that they tried to patch everything, and then all of a sudden everybody was talking to everybody and nobody could talk. So probably the biggest success was again the bringing all of the efforts together with SafeCom under what was eventually DHS. SafeCom had a couple of key models to identify ways to improve governance, equipment, standard operating procedures, training, and exercises. And through those and coordinating the grant funds accordingly in each of those areas, what we've been able to do since is through attrition, public safety all across the United States has been able to do a much better job at coordinating as far as our purchases. Hey, what are you guys getting? What are we getting? How should we talk? Language, the example that we always use between police and fire, and in your family, I'm sure you know how these little debates go between police and fire. Lots of good kidding and ribbing. If the military says cover me, if a firefighter says cover me, and if a police officer says cover me, you can get some very different responses as to what that will mean, whether it's water, whether it's equipment, or whether there's guns being pulled out. So we've worked on all of those different aspects. Again, FirstNet, SafeCom, the technology's coming, but we didn't get into that position, on September 10th. It took a long time to get into the pickle, and it's going to continue to take time to get out of it.
Chief, thank you so much for that. Captain Meyer, you talked a little bit in your opening statement about IPAWS and the usefulness of that platform. What would you say are some additional things that can be done to improve the performance of the platform?
One of the most important things that FirstNet has done for us, and can you hear me okay, ma'am? I should check first. All right. Thank you. My apologies for the earlier technical difficulties. But with FirstNet, we have to talk about the resiliency of the network and to make sure that the build out as it's at, I think it's 95% complete at this point, moving Band 14 across the United States, putting that national public safety broadband power in the hands of first responders, that we want to make sure some of that legacy equipment that the towers are actually built to standards that we would use for our public safety radio systems, that the power systems that back them up, that the diversity of the paths that actually connect those network of networks together is built to that same standard. And so we see that with FirstNet, they do have a transparency platform with AT&T where I can see as a first responder the health of the network. I can see how things are going. I can see if there's outages or impairments. And here's the thing for us, as first responders, we actually have to anticipate those disruptions and impairments to our operations. We do that all the time, and that includes outages, not just related to FirstNet. We plan for those responses, and then during those events, as well as for recovery. So we know that FirstNet is working with them on this. I have some experience this. I was part of the FirstNet Public Safety Advisory Committee for many years, served as its vice chair. Proud to say that I'm very proud of the effort we've seen through the FirstNet Authority and the hard-working people there. And also think about the deployables that they've put out. They have more than 100 deployables ready to go that can be pre-staged like they did in DC, like they've done in Michigan, to prepare for events like they've done in Florida and New Orleans. And those are things that we have to be ready for. I'm talking to you from New Orleans right now, and I can see the devastation when I look out the window of what these storms can do and how they can tear up infrastructure. And that's what being prepared is doing for us. By partnering with FirstNet and moving this forward, we are building in more resiliency. We're identifying the weak parts. We're ensuring the diversity of the pathways. I'm very proud of the work that's going on with it, and it's a very, very useful tool for public safety.
Captain Meyer, thank you so much for your response. The chair now recognizes the ranking member of the subcommittee, the gentlewoman from Florida, for your questions.